My wife cheated, and now she's begging me to keep it a secret from our kids. I found out about my wife's affair a week ago. It wasn't a tearful confession or a slip of the tongue. I stumbled upon it, like tripping over a jagged stone that sends you tumbling into an abyss. It was late at night, and I was tidying up the living room when I noticed her phone buzzing on the coffee table. Normally I wouldn't think twice, but something about the frequency of the texts felt off. Curiosity, or maybe a gut instinct I'd ignored for too long, got the better of me. I picked up her phone. At first, it was just mundane work texts. But then I saw his name, someone I didn't recognize, and the messages beneath it. They weren't cryptic, they weren't subtle. They were brazen. I can't wait to see you again. Last night was incredible. My hands began to shake. My stomach twisted as I scrolled further, seeing months of texts, photos, and even hotel bookings. I froze. The world around me seemed to blur. This wasn't some nightmare I could wake up from, it was my life. For years I thought we were happy. Sure, things weren't perfect, but what marriage is. We had 2 incredible kids, a cozy home, and a life we'd built together. Now it all felt like a lie. The next day I confronted her. I held the phone in my hand like a piece of evidence in a courtroom. She didn't deny it. Instead, she broke down. Between sobs, she begged me not to tell the kids. "Please," she said, grabbing my hand. "They're too young. They won't." "Understand. I'll do anything. Just don't let this ruin their childhood." Her plea hit me like a sledgehammer. I love my kids more than anything in this world. Ben is 12, sharp as a tack and always full of questions. Lily is 8, still living in a world of fairy tales and happy endings. But how could I lie to them? How could I pretend everything was fine when my world was crumbling? As much as I hated her for what she did, I couldn't deny that her words made sense. If I told them, it would change their relationship with her forever. Maybe it would even break them. But keeping the secret felt like carrying a weight I wasn't sure I could bear. Now, every moment is a battle. Every smile I force feels like a betrayal of my own pain. But the kids can't see it, they can't know. For their sake, I have to keep going. But at what cost? Looking back, I should have seen the signs. It wasn't one big change, but a series of small shifts that, together, painted a picture I refused to look at. She started staying late at work, more often blaming tight deadlines or staff shortages. It seemed believable at first. She's always been dedicated to her job. But then her demeanor began to change. She was more distant, distracted even when we were together. Conversations became shorter, her laughs less genuine. And the phone, she was suddenly glued to it. She'd smile at texts but hide the screen when I was near, claiming it was just work stuff. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was being paranoid. I trusted her. We'd been married for 14 years. We had a family, a life, and a history I thought was unshakable, but the doubts lingered, like an itch I couldn't scratch. The breaking point came one evening when she came home later than usual. She looked disheveled, her makeup smudged, and her excuses didn't add up. My gut told me something was wrong, but I still hesitated. It wasn't until a few nights later, when she accidentally left her phone charging in the kitchen, that I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling anymore. I'd never snooped before, but that night as I stood alone in the kitchen staring at her phone, I couldn't help myself. My heart raced as I picked it up, my thumb hovering over the screen. Her passcode hadn't changed, small comfort in a storm of uncertainty. The first few messages were normal, texts from friends, reminders about work meetings. Then I saw his name, Chris. I didn't know a Chris. My stomach dropped as I opened the thread. The messages were damning. They didn't beat around the A. Bush didn't even attempt to hide their intimacy. "I miss you already," one said. Another read, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." And then there was a picture, a selfie of them together in a hotel room, both smiling like teenagers in love. I felt a strange combination of disbelief and fury. My hands trembled as I read more, plans for future meetups, flirtatious banter, and even complaints about me. He's so oblivious, it's almost funny. Those words burned themselves into my brain. The shower turned off upstairs and I heard her footsteps coming down the hall. Panic set in as I locked the phone and put it back on the counter. I couldn't face her yet, not until I could figure out what to say. The confrontation happened the next day. I couldn't keep it bottled up. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone as if nothing had happened. I stood in front of her, holding my own phone with the evidence pulled up. "What's this?" I asked, my voice low but trembling with barely contained anger. Her face turned pale as she realized what I was holding. "I can explain," she stammered, tears already welling up in her eyes. "Explain," I snapped, my voice rising. "You've been lying to me for months. What is there to explain?" She broke down, sobbing and apologizing. "It was a mistake," she cried. "It didn't mean anything. I love you. I love our family." I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell that if she loved me, she wouldn't have done this. But instead, I felt numb. The person I thought I knew, the person I'd built a life with, had betrayed me in the most personal way possible. Then came the plea. Through her tears, she begged me, not for forgiveness, but for secrecy. "Please," she whispered. "Don't tell the kids. They don't deserve to be dragged into this. Let's work through this quietly for them." Her words hung in the air like a fog. I didn't know what to say. My world was already crumbling, and now she was asking me to keep it together for the sake of the kids. Her words echoed in my head, louder than the sound of my own heart pounding in my chest. "Please don't tell the kids." She sat across from me, her face streaked with tears, clutching a throw pillow like it was a lifeline. "They're too young," she said, her voice trembling. "Ben's in middle school, dealing with enough already. And Lily, she's just a little girl. You can't shatter her world like this." My initial response was anger. How dare she use our kids to shield herself from the consequences of her actions? But beneath that anger was a deeper pain, a gut-wrenching conflict I couldn't ignore. Because she was right. Ben, our 12-year-old, was sharp for his age, too sharp. He'd noticed something was wrong, even if I didn't say a word. He already had. Just last week, he'd asked me why Mum was so distracted all the time. I'd brushed it off, but now I realized he wasn't fooled. Lily, on the other hand, still believed in bedtime stories and magic. Her innocent, giggling smile was the last thing in this world I wanted to take away. "Do you even understand what you're asking me to do?" I said finally, my voice shaking. "You're asking me to carry this, to lie to them, so you can keep pretending everything's fine." She shook her head. "No, I'm asking you to protect them. To protect us. I know I messed up, but they don't need to know that. It'll ruin everything for them, and for what? Just to make me the villain?" I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. "You already made yourself the villain," I snapped, my anger finally boiling over. "You cheated, you lied, and now you want me to help you cover it up?" Her face crumpled, but she didn't argue. Instead, she whispered, I can't lose them." Her desperation cut through my rage. As much as I hated her for what she did, I couldn't deny that the kids deserved better than this mess. But wasn't pretending just another lie? Another betrayal? This time of their trust in me. I spent that night tossing and turning, replaying her words over and over. Every scenario felt wrong. If I told them, I'd be the one to break their hearts, to shatter their image of their mother. If I kept the secret, I'd have to live with it. Every smile, every family dinner would feel like a betrayal of the truth. The next morning, I watched Ben at the kitchen table, scribbling furiously in his math workbook. Lily was on the floor, with her dolls humming to herself as she built a castle out of blocks. They looked so peaceful, so innocent. I wanted to shield them from the pain I was feeling, to preserve the bubble of safety and happiness they lived in. But at the same time, I knew that bubble wasn't real, not anymore. When she came into the kitchen, I could feel her watching me. "Have you thought about it?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. How could I? There was no simple answer to this. "I don't know what to do," I admitted finally. "Just, please," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "For them." Her plea wasn't just about protecting the kids, it was about saving herself too. And deep down, I knew that. The days that followed felt like walking through a minefield. Every moment, every interaction with her with the kids felt loaded, ready to explode if I made the wrong move. We didn't tell the kids, not yet at least. I didn't know if it was the right choice, but for now, I told myself it was better to wait, to figure out how to move forward before dragging them into something they might not even understand. But the tension was impossible to ignore. At breakfast, Ben asked, "Why are you and Mom so quiet lately?" His question was casual, almost offhand, but I could see the concern in his eyes. I forced a smile. "Just tired, buddy. Work's been busy." It was a weak excuse, and he wasn't convinced. He looked over at his mom, who was sipping her coffee like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. "You sure?" he pressed. "We're fine, Ben," she said, finally looking up. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled as she set the mug down. The look he gave her, that mix of doubt and worry, made my chest tighten. He was too smart for his own good. Lily, on the other hand, seemed blissfully unaware. She spent her days playing with her dolls or drawing pictures of our family, always with big smiles and hearts around us. Every time she showed me one, I felt a pang of guilt. I wasn't sure if I was protecting her innocence or prolonging a lie that would hurt her even more when it came crashing down. At night, the silence between my wife and me was deafening. We barely spoke unless it was about the kids. When we did talk, it was tense, every word carefully measured to avoid igniting another argument. One night, after the kids were asleep, I finally broke the silence. "What are we even doing?" I asked, my voice low but heavy with frustration. She looked up from the book she'd been pretending to read. "What do you mean?" "This," I said, gesturing between us. "Pretending everything's fine when it's not." Her shoulders slumped and she closed the book, setting it on the nightstand. "I'm trying, okay? I'm trying to fix this." "Are you?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Because all I see is you trying to cover it up. That's not fixing anything." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not this time. "I ended it," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "With him. It's over." I stared at her, searching for any sign that she was lying. "Why now?" "Because I want to fix this," she said, her voice breaking. "I know I've hurt you, I know I've ruined your trust, but I don't want to lose our family. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Her words should have meant something, but they felt hollow. It wasn't just the affair that had broken us. It was the lies, the selfishness, the way she'd begged me to protect her secret instead of taking full responsibility for her actions. The kids, meanwhile, started picking up on the cracks we were desperately trying to hide. One evening, as I was helping Ben with his homework, he asked, "Dad, are you and Mom okay?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask?" I said, stalling for time. He shrugged, but didn't look up from his math book. "I don't. No, you guys just seem different. You're not fighting or anything, but it feels weird, like you're both pretending." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. He wasn't wrong, but how could I explain it to him? How could I tell him his mom had betrayed me without destroying his image of her? "We're just going through a rough patch," I said finally. "But it doesn't change how much we love. You and Lily, okay?" He nodded, but the look on his face told me he wasn't satisfied with my answer. The emotional weight was suffocating. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't look at her without seeing those messages, those pictures. But more than anything, I couldn't stand the way the kids looked at me, like they trusted me to make everything okay, when I didn't even know how to keep myself together. I started seeing a therapist, hoping it would help me untangle the mess in my head. It felt strange at first, spilling my feelings to a stranger, but over time, it became a lifeline. "You're carrying a heavy burden," the therapist said, during one session. "But you don't have to do it alone. What do you want to do?" The question haunted me. What did I want? I wanted to protect my kids. I wanted to heal. I wanted my wife to truly understand the damage she'd done. But above all, I wanted to stop feeling like a prisoner in my own home. The breaking point came on a quiet Saturday afternoon. Lily was playing in the living room while I was sorting through some papers on the kitchen counter. I must have been careless because I didn't notice the hotel receipt slip out of the pile and fall to the floor. "Daddy, what's this?" Lily asked, holding it up with her tiny hands. Her curious blue eyes stared up at me, completely innocent. My heart stopped. I snatched the paper from her hands so fast that she flinched. "Nothing, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "Just some boring grown-up stuff." She tilted her head, unconvinced. "It says hotel. Did you and Mommy go there?" Before I could answer, my wife walked into the room. Her face went pale when she saw what Lily had been holding. "Hey, honey," she said quickly, crouching down to Lily's level. "Why don't you go play with your dolls? Daddy and I need to talk." Lily nodded and skipped off, but the damage was done. I stared at my wife, anger boiling under the surface. "This is what I was afraid of," I said in a low voice. "We're lying to them, and it's only a matter of time before they figure it out." She sighed, rubbing her temples. I know. But what do you want me to do?" "We agreed not to tell them." "No." I snapped. "You begged me not to tell them. I never agreed to this, and I'm not sure I can keep doing it." That night, after the kids were in bed, I finally laid it all out. "This can't go on," I said, sitting across from her at the dining table. "I've thought about this over and over, and there's no way to come out of this without someone getting hurt, but I refuse to let it be them." She looked at me, her eyes filled with fear. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to take responsibility," I said firmly. "I won't tell them, but only because I won't be the one to shatter their world. If you want me to keep this secret, you need to prove you're worthy of their trust. That means no more lies, no more excuses, and no more pretending." We go to counseling, we work on this, or we don't, but I'm done carrying this alone. Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't look away. For once I felt like I had control, like I was the one setting the terms. Over the next few weeks we started therapy, both individually and as a couple. It wasn't easy. Every session felt like peeling back a fresh layer of pain, exposing wounds that hadn't even begun to heal. But the kids, they were my anchor. Every time I felt like giving up, I thought of Ben and Lily. I wanted them to grow up in a home where they felt safe, where they knew they were loved, even if that meant putting aside my anger and resentment for their sake. We told them in simple terms that Mum and Dad were working through some grown-up problems, but that it didn't change how much we loved them. Ben was skeptical, but Lily smiled and hugged us both, saying, "I'm just glad we're all together." It's been months since I found out about the affair. Things aren't perfect, they never will be, but I've learned to focus on what matters most. My kids come first. And as for my wife, she's working to rebuild the trust she broke. I don't know if we'll ever get back to where we were, but I'm no longer holding on to the weight of her betrayal alone. Some nights I lie awake wondering if I made the right choice. Should I have told the kids? Should I have left? There's no easy answer, no perfect solution. But for now, I'm at peace knowing I did what I thought was best for them. So, what would you have done in my shoes? Would you have told the kids, or was keeping the secret the right call? Let me know your thoughts.